Whoosh! Nahuen blurred and reappeared in front of the constant star level 7 man, his battle axe coming down in a furious arc. What? The constant star level 7 man shouted, stunned, and reflexively brought up his battle knife to parry. Bang! With a deafening clash, the man was knocked backward. He tumbled through the air, smashing through several large trees until his body stuck in the trunk of a towering tree. He spat out a mouthful of fresh blood and, half in disbelief, muttered, Nahuen is actually this strong. Too fast. Nahuen had moved so quickly that if he hadn't deliberately held back, the constant star level 7 man would not have managed to parry the blow. After sending him flying with a single strike, Nahuen rested the battle axe on his shoulder and wore a look of contempt. You dare show your face with this little strength? So fast. The thought ran through the minds of everyone present. The distance between the two had been short, and with the reaction speed of a constant star level 7 expert, a parry should have been possible. The two astral rank 8 experts exchanged looks, apprehension and reluctant respect in their eyes. They nodded slightly and said in unison, We accept your division. Nahuen's expression softened a little. Good. I gave you the map, and I'm the strongest here. It's only reasonable that my people take more hunting ground. Reasonable, my foot, the two muttered under their breath. You only have a few people, and yet you claim more than the two of us combined. They turned and led their groups away. After the 20-odd people had left, a man with smooth blue skin came up to Nahuen's side. Boss, he called, puzzled. Why don't we bring them in to carry out the plan? Nahuen shook his head. No. Killing a student from the stellar cultivation camp would add 100 years to our sentence. They would never agree to that. He swept his gaze over the handful of clansmen still near him. Only you will trust me unconditionally. A hint of a smile crossed the blue-skinned man's face. His eyes were determined. Only you, boss, can save our clansmen. As long as you can leave Black Prison Star alive, we won't hesitate to die 1,000 times for you. Nahuen's face went somber. Only you believe me. The others all think I sold our people as slaves. They're confused, the clansman said to comfort him. Once they understand the truth, they'll— Boss! Another clansman, who had been standing with his eyes closed, suddenly opened them and interrupted. The ship is here. Nahuen's gaze sharpened. Start the plan. Yes! Several clansmen shot up into the sky and flew toward their prearranged directions, leaving only the man who had been keeping his eyes closed and Nahuen behind. Nahuen turned to him. Record the target's movements. Yes, the clansman nodded and closed his eyes, entering a meditative state to monitor and record. On Chikunli Star, a spaceship arrived from deep space, tore through the atmosphere, and hovered above a forest. A flying Yao beast perched atop the tallest tree and watched the ship. Unlike its less wary kin, this Yao beast had an alert gaze and showed higher than average intelligence. The ship's hatch opened with a crack, figures streamed out and took to the air, heading for their assigned sectors. Li Qi stood on the Bloodblade cone and steered toward the area where the most vicious beasts were known to roam. He already had a route planned in his head. Barring bad luck, half a month should be enough to complete the basic tasks. Compared to elusive fugitives, vicious beasts with fixed activity ranges were far easier to hunt. Less than half an hour into his flight, Li Qi spotted his first target. A flying vicious beast with a wingspan over 40 meters, its plumage fiery red like living flames. A fire feather bird, he said at once. The bloodblade cone under his feet disintegrated and reformed into a blood-red crescent blade in an instant. Blood Edge Blade, go, he commanded, activating the amplification sigil. With a faint buzzing, the blood edge blade shot forward like a streak of blood-red light. The fire feather bird cried out. It had seen Li Qi, but, judging him too small to be worthwhile prey, ignored him. Its simple mind preferred larger quarry. Then the blood-red arc flashed past its neck before it could react. The bird flapped once and kept flying for a short distance, then suddenly plunged toward the forest. Its massive body smashed into the canopy and slammed into trunks, tearing a gaping hole in the trees below. The first mission target, Li Qi said with relief as the blood edge blade returned to him. A second-order telekinesis weapon really was powerful. It handled a constant star level 3 fire feather bird with ease. The blade dissolved and reassembled into its flight form, carrying him toward the distant mountains. Several hours later, among peaks that pierced the clouds, a green-scaled vicious beast more than 70 meters long roared as it stamped across the ridges. Dozens of deep wounds laced its body and it bled profusely, but for such an enormous creature, the injuries were not crippling. Sk, Li Chi muttered. A star-level ninth-order green-scaled beast, thick scales, a massive frame, hard to take down. If he'd encountered only this beast after wandering so long, he would have moved on. The blood-edge blade could pierce the scales, but killing such a creature was another matter. A star-level ninth order's body density and muscle toughness were extraordinary. Even the blade had trouble cutting deep enough into the layers of muscle to do fatal damage. Mind attacks were barely effective either. Despite its lack of high intelligence, it still possessed a reservoir of mind power in its sea of consciousness. He had no choice but to whittle it down through attrition. For half an hour, he chipped away at the beast until its movement slowed and it finally collapsed. 10 days later, deep in a forest, Li Chi used the blood edge blade to bring down a giant python-like vicious beast. That's the 24th target, he reported to himself. With 6 targets left to meet his quota, he felt confident he could finish the basic tasks within 5 days. Just then, his wrist communicator buzzed, signaling an important incoming message. Chapter 62, Unexpected Task. Pfft. Nahuan pulled his battle axe from the corpse of an astral cultivation camp student. Blood spattered as the blade came free. With a flick of his wrist, he plunged the axe into the mud, then bent to strip the communicator from the student's wrist. Holding it up to eye level, he grinned, showing sharp teeth. "It's mine!" He tossed the communicator to a companion, picked his axe back up, and rested it on his shoulder. "Cover me. I'm breaking through to universe rank." "Yes, boss!" On a D-class ship hovering above Chi Kunli Star, a control room flickered with light screens. Several astral rank crew members watched them when one screen flashed red and an alarm screamed. A corpulent astral rank officer waved his hand. A red alert panel blossomed before him. Reading the data, he stiffened. Someone's breaking through to universe rank. A short astral rank attendant frowned. There's only one star-level 9th Order criminal on Chi Kunli Star. Who else could it be? It's that star-level 9th Order criminal, Nahuan Guer. He's breaking through. What? The short attendant's face went pale. He barked, "Keep watching. I'll report to our superiors." One monitored, while the other reported. Soon 3 universe-rank powerhouses filed into the room. "What's the situation? Has the criminal Nahuan Guer completed his breakthrough?" one asked. "Yes," the corpulent officer answered. "He has completed it. Transmit an order through his chip immediately. Instruct Nahuan Guer to remain where he is. If he disobeys," another universe rank's gaze went cold, "kill him on the spot." "Yes," the corpulent officer nodded and began issuing the command. Once done, the universe rank trio prepared to report up the chain together. In a hidden mountain cave on Chi Kunli Star, Nahuan's face turned blue with displeasure. "So they actually ordered me to stop." He already knew the Lava Empire had implanted a control chip in him and that breaking through to universe rank would trigger detection and restrictions. Still, when it happened, he felt helpless, unable to control his own life. All criminals on Black Prison Star must have chips. Until their sentence ends and they leave, they're monitored. The chip can not only watch but also execute anyone who disobeys Lava Empire orders. Nahuan clenched his fists. "I hope it's true what they said, that the Lava Empire won't just cut this trial mission short." He still had 2,700 years left on his sentence. By the standard calculation, each astral cultivation student counted as astral rank 3 stage. Killing 20 such students would wipe out his entire sentence. After becoming universe rank, 2,700 years wasn't forever, but he refused to wait. That time span meant countless clansmen could be sold off while he waited. This trial mission was his chance to return quickly to rescue them. Killing an astral cultivation camp student granted 100 years reduction in sentence, plus an extra 20 years for each stage above the baseline. With a 2,700-year sentence, 20 astral rank 3-stage kills would finish his reduction. His communicator vibrated against his wrist and, at the same instant, the chip in his mind pinged him. Nahuan shot to his feet, excitement lighting his expression. Finally. Li Qi frowned at his own communicator. Why would an important message come during a trial mission? The heavy defense disc before him dissolved into hundreds of black blades that hollowed out a large tree. Li Qi slipped inside and opened the communicator. A light screen popped up with a mission notice that made him sit up. The message read, "Due to the criminal Nahuan Guer breaking through to universe rank, an emergency mission has been activated. Emergency mission, survival. Every 2 hours, a random evacuation point will appear somewhere on Chi Kunli star. Each evacuation point will last 1 hour. The first point will appear in 10 minutes. Students who reach an evacuation point will receive a basic 50 points. From the start of emergency mission, survival, for every 2 hours survived on Chi Kunli star, 10 points will be awarded, up to a maximum of 100 points. Note, students who escape to an evacuation point will be considered to have completed this trial mission. All communicators can obtain evacuation point coordinates." At the bottom was the current number of survivors, 51. The criminal Nahuan Guer has broken through to universe rank. Li Qi's brow tightened, then he relaxed. Luckily, Nahuan Guer is a martial artist, and his original force weapon is only first order. If he were stronger, I might not be so confident about escaping. Before Territory Lord rank, Psyker Masters held clear advantages over martial artists: speed, attack range, and so on. But at Territory Lord rank, the appearance of domains narrowed that gap, and by World Lord rank, with world projection in play, they approached parity. The energy gap between Apprentice 9 stage and planetary level is only about 4 times. With the physical transformations of planetary level, the basic strength difference won't exceed tenfold. Between planetary level 9 stage and astral rank, it's larger, but still not beyond 20 times. Li Qi considered the mission description. I can get the extra 100 points from this emergency mission. Nahuan Guer was universe rank first order, so a direct fight would be dangerous. But Li Qi had a domain. Inside it, Nahuan's speed would be severely hindered, and Li Qi could rely on mind energy weapons to defend and counter. Against a martial artist, killing a Psyker Master would be difficult. To get 100 extra points, I need to survive 20 hours. He closed his eyes and let his mind power seep through the hollow tree. I'll just hide here for 20 hours. He abandoned any plan to hunt the remaining 6 targets for the basic trial mission. Instead, he would lie low and survive the emergency mission. 20 hours later, Li Qi opened his eyes and checked his communicator, surprised. Only 13 survivors left. If his memory was right, 57 students had started this trial. When the emergency mission triggered, there were 51 survivors. In the 20 hours since then, 38 had died. The mortality rate has already topped 70%. Even for a hunting mission, this is extreme. Li Qi's eyes narrowed. Hunting universe rank powerhouses is terrifying. Let's see if anyone can catch me. With a blur, he slipped from the tree hollow and mounted his blood blade cone, launching himself into the sky. Li Qi shot up into the sky and opened his communicator. A pale display sprang to life, counting down to the appearance of the evacuation point. 7, 2, 1. When the countdown ended, a 3-dimensional map of Chi Kunli star unfolded on the screen. A white dot marked Li Qi's position. The map spun, then stopped to reveal a flickering red dot where the evacuation point had appeared. The distance is a little far, Li Qi muttered, studying the span between the white and red dots, almost half the planet. No problem. With the speed of the Bloodblade cone, I can close that in an hour easily. At the speed a constant star-level expert moved, an hour was enough to circle Chi Kunli's star. The farther he flew, though, the more likely he was to run into Nahuan, the universe-rank criminal. Li Qi didn't worry. Even if I run into him, it won't be a chase he can win. A universe-level first-order fighter can't catch me. He pushed off on the Bloodblade cone and streaked toward the evacuation point like a blood-red rainbow. Far below, a constant star level 2 avian vicious beast watched the streak of red light with sharp, intelligent eyes. In a dense forest on the same planet, Nahuan carried a blood-smeared battle axe over his shoulder. A corpse of a constant star level student lay at his feet. Only one left, he said grimly. A light panel glowed on his communicator, showing the evacuation point pulsing in red. Since he'd seized a student's communicator, he had the same access as the others. What he saw matched what the students could see. Although 13 students had survived the initial chaos, some had already evacuated. Nahuin estimated only 3 or fewer were still on Chi Kunli Star. Whoever wants the extra 100 points will most likely head to the evacuation point, he thought. This was his last chance. I'll kill the last one when that evacuation point appears. A video call came through. He accepted. A man with smooth blue skin filled the screen. Nahuin's clansmen, the last of their clan on the planet. "Boss, I found a student from the Constant Star Cultivation camp," he shouted. "Where is he?" Nahuin asked, eyes lighting up. "He's flying toward the evacuation point. Coordinates are." The clansman recited the coordinates and then asked, "Boss, do you want me to stall him a bit?" "No," Nahuin said quickly. A student bold enough to risk the evacuation point under the presence of a universe-level expert was dangerous, likely stronger or more desperate than they looked. If his clansman tried to stall, he might be the one to go and never return. "Leave this one to me." After checking the direction, Nahuin flew off to intercept. Elsewhere in the forest, 4 criminals were hidden among the treetops, arguing in low voices. "I found a student, but he's strong, using a second-order telekinesis weapon, a blood blade cone," a thin criminal reported to his 3 companions. "A second-order telekinesis weapon?" a woman scoffed. "Are you sure you saw that right?" Second-order telekinesis weapons were rare. She had taken part in 3 stellar hunting missions and had never seen a student wield one. The thin criminal bristled at her doubt. "I'm a psyker master. I mainly cultivate the beast tamer Dao, but I know more about mind energy weapons than you martial artists do." The female criminal didn't want to argue and waved it away. Fine, you know better." A brown-furred, leopard-like man asked, "So do we go after him or not?" "If he truly has a second-order telekinesis weapon, it will be risky," the tall man said, rubbing his chin. "Let's vote." "I object," the Psyker Master said first. "If the opponent is a Psyker Master wielding a second-order telekinesis weapon, we'll have a hard time. We might even get killed." "I object as well." The female criminal raised her hand. "Those Constant Star Cultivation camp weapons are weird. Even first-order weapons can act like second-order ones. If he really has that, we're at a disadvantage." "Object," the leopard man agreed. The tall man nodded. "Looks like everyone agrees. I also object to taking action." He turned to the Psyker Master. "Send your pet to follow him and see if anyone else targets him." "No problem," the Psyker Master grinned. He loved a good show. The female criminal was also eager. Who didn't enjoy watching the fun unfold? Back in the sky, Lychee rode the blood blade cone and tilted his head slightly as his mind power swept outward. He noticed the Constant Star Level 2 avian beast trailing some distance behind. "Still following, huh?" he thought. The bird's eyes had been too agile to be a normal vicious beast, almost intelligent. But it wasn't a target of the hunting mission and not worth delaying for. As long as it didn't interfere, he'd ignore it. The closer he got to the evacuation point, the more cautious he became. With a universe-level criminal on the planet, he couldn't afford to be careless. It always seemed the stellar hunting mission favored the criminals. Any criminal who captured a student's communicator could see the student's mission and plan accordingly, while the students had no way of learning what the criminals were doing or how many remained. Using mind power, Lychee scanned the forest ahead and detected movement. "Someone," he murmured. He narrowed his focus and found 4 criminals lying in ambush among the trees. He paused and read their faces with a precise mind power scan, pulling up their details. 1 Constant Star Level 7, 1 Level 5, 2 Level 4. Lychee smiled at the findings. All martial artists. They came to deliver some warm welcomes. The 4 criminals in the treetops saw him stop and realized the approaching student must be a Psyker Master. They had been spotted. One signaled to the others, "We've been discovered. Move." They dropped from the treetops like streaks of shadow, each a blurring line of intent, and charged at Lychee. Chapter 64. Kill Criminals. Facing 4 streaks of fleeing light, Lychee, ready for anything, brought up his heavy defense shield. At his feet, the blood blade cone disassembled and reformed, its blood-red, crescent-shaped blood edge blade launching outward like a thrown scythe. "It's a second-order telekinesis weapon," the blood blade cone. Seeing that crimson arc bearing down on them, the constant star level 7 criminal warned his companions over the communicator, "Don't take it head on, dodge." The other fugitives froze for a moment. Second-order telekinesis weapons were extremely rare on hunting planets. They just encountered one in the wild. None of them dared to meet it directly and scattered to avoid the strike. Soul-piercing needle. Li Qi sent an invisible spike of mind power into the sea of consciousness of one of the criminals, a constant star level 4 named Lu Ku. The needle-shaped attack had terrible penetrating force. Lu Ku's willpower was mediocre. His mental defenses were breached instantly. His sea of consciousness collapsed. The blow wounded his soul, clouded his awareness, and he lost control of his body. He fell helplessly through the air. The blood-red crescent swept by, tracing a lethal arc. At first it seemed as if nothing had changed, then Lu Ku's body split cleanly in two. Blood sprayed like a fountain. How did Lu Ku get hit? Why didn't he dodge? Lu Ku's "he's dead"? Three of the criminals turned toward the shattered corpse, stunned. Seeing one of their own cut down so easily, the constant star level 7 stopped and began to retreat rapidly. He keyed his communicator and barked to his remaining companions, "He's an illusionist! Run!" They'd probed Li Qi's strength and found him to be a constant star level 6 Psyker Master. On paper, they should have been able to handle him. But he had a second-order telekinesis weapon and devastating mental attacks. He'd just killed Lu Ku in an instant. That kind of enemy was beyond them. If he could cut down someone nearly their equal at a stroke, he could do the same to them. Hearing their leader shout retreat, the two surviving criminals who'd already been thinking about pulling out turned and fled. "You delivered yourselves to me, and now you want to leave?" Li Qi's gaze was cold. The heavy defense shield folded down and flowed to his feet in a black metal torrent, reassembling into a heavy defense disc. Mounted on his mind energy weapon in flight form, he was naturally faster than ordinary flyers. He didn't pursue the closest escapee, but instead went after the one he judged the greater threat. Soul-piercing needle. Again, Li Qi drove the slender mind spike into a fleeing criminal's sea of consciousness. The blood-red blade sliced through the air after him. The target grunted as his mental defense shattered and his soul took a wound. He managed, by sheer force of will, to stay upright in the air, but his speed dropped sharply. The crimson light closed in and swept past his neck. "I don't want to die," he thought, but the blade had already severed his head from his body. He was gone. Li Qi pursued for a few more seconds. The mind energy weapon's superior speed closed the gap, and another soul-piercing needle found its mark on the fleeing constant star level 5. This wound plunged the man into unconsciousness. His will snapped, and he began to fall. The blood-edged blade cut past, splitting him in two. With the two killed and another fled, Li Qi stopped. He glanced once at the constant star level 7, who had already put distance between them, and chose not to give chase. He could have caught him with time, but the pursuit would be costly in time and energy, and Li Qi had no desire to squander either. He opened his communicator, adjusted his course, and continued toward the evacuation point. On Chunli Star, in a dense stand of trees, a thin constant star level 2 criminal sat with eyes closed, reporting the skirmish in a shaken voice. That student used the Bloodblade Cone along with mind power attacks and killed Lu Ku. "He killed," another repeated, incredulous. "He didn't chase. Akitu escaped." After relaying the facts, the thin man opened his eyes. "This is the first time I've seen such a powerful illusionist. Those three, Lu Ku included, lost their combat ability the moment his mind power hit them, and the blood edge blade finished them instantly." Silence fell over the undergrowth for a long beat. A female criminal sighed in relief. "Good thing we didn't intervene. If it had been us, things might have turned out much worse." A brown-furred leopard man agreed. "We probably would have been wiped out." "As ruthless as someone who dared to take 100 points with a universe rank on their tail," the tall man muttered. They nodded in agreement. Then one of them laughed. "We should thank Na Huen. If he hadn't forced us to hunt in this small area, we might have run into that ruthless one." "We really should," the leopard man said. "To be honest, I admire him," the tall man continued. breaking through to universe rank on a hunting planet, then hunting down the stellar cultivation camp's genius students to get a reduced sentence. What a gamble. If he'd misread the camp's higher-ups, his universe breakthrough might have counted for nothing, and getting a reduced sentence later would have been impossible. They all shared the thought, nodding. Then their expressions shifted, and they closed their eyes as someone else spoke into the comm. It's Nahuen. He's chasing that ruthless character. The tall man sprang to his feet. Follow him. Understood. The thin, constant star level 2 Psyker Master nodded and dug in his heels, urging the vicious beast they rode to follow Nahuen into the chase. Chapter 65, You Can't Catch Me. That ruthless guy is finished, the brown-furred male criminal said. He's targeted by Nahuen, and Nahuen has just broken through to universe rank, the woman snapped. He doesn't stand a chance. Before Nahuen's breakthrough to universe rank, he had already been a top-tier astral rank fighter in Black Prison Star. Naturally, after breaking through, he was even more terrifying. The ruthless man they were talking about had been strong enough to crush most opponents, but against a universe rank like Nahuen, he would be hopelessly outmatched. Chikunli Star, Outer Space. Inside a D-Class transport, 3 cosmic-level instructors watched the chase on the monitoring screen. When they saw Nahuen, a newly minted universe rank, bearing down on Li Royce, the instructor from the Sansi Stellar Cultivation Camp barked. Li Royce is the Empire's top cultivation target in the planetary department. If Nahuen ever threatens his life, terminate Nahuen immediately. That order made the other 2 instructors exchange glances. The Empire's #1 target was clearly destined to become a core member of the Lava Empire. The 2 instructors from other camps began to murmur by telepathy. Li Royce, that name sounds familiar. Isn't he the planetary-level domain prodigy born on the Empire's cultivation planet? So that's why a priority target suddenly appears. Yes, the astral rank staffer who managed the ship's control chip answered over the comm. Below them, over the dense forest of Chikunli Star, Li Royce rode his blood blade cone. He swept the area with his mind power as usual and froze. Something was closing in fast from behind. Narrowing his focus to a single direction, he saw the approaching figure, blue skin, a scar across his face. It's him, Nahuen. He glanced back and picked out a streak of blue light rushing toward him at a speed no ordinary astral rank could reach. Heavy defense shield, he thought. A moment later, his heavy defense disc deployed and formed a black defensive shield behind him. Nahuen's eyes burned with excitement. This was his last target. He flared his body's force field and poured genetic primal energy into his flight, closing rapidly. Now, he roared, launching a secret technique that detonated behind him in a sonic boom. The explosion accelerated him further. The primal force battle axe on his shoulder flared with blue runes. Die! Nahuen howled and swung the axe. He was only about 10 meters away. When the axe completed its arc, it should have struck true. But a green light shot out from Li Qi and wrapped around Nahuen, restraining and suppressing him. His momentum faltered. The axe didn't meet Li Qi's body. It slammed into the black heavy defense shield instead. Clang! The collision sent an invisible shockwave outward. It shredded leaves and snapped branches in the forest below. Li Qi grunted as the force rattled his mind power. The black shield that had taken the blow shattered into hundreds of razor shards that scattered in all directions, but the impact also accelerated Li Qi's flight. He used that force to push harder toward the evacuation point. So strong, as expected of a universe rank, Li Qi thought, a faint smile on his face. But you're a martial artist. You can't kill me. He reassembled the fragments of his heavy defense shield with a thought, reforming the guard behind him. Nahuen stared in disbelief. How? My strike missed? He felt the suppression coming from the green light, and when he stepped out of it, the feeling vanished. The realization hit him like a blow. A domain. He had only ever seen domains in images. He had spent life-and-death struggles in Black Prison Star to comprehend a concept, yet this astral rank 6th Order Psyker standing ahead had actually formed a domain, and not a weak one. The restraint and suppression implied that this domain was not newly formed. Aboard the transport, the Sansi instructor's voice tightened. Domain triple. The 3 instructors stared at the screen, stunned. Li Royce, This Empire Planet Department's top cultivation target had reached triple domain. With the suppression of a triple domain, even a universe-level First Order like Nahuen couldn't tear him down. Nahuen refused to accept it. He launched another secret technique, surging forward, but the moment he entered the green light's coverage, it slowed him again. His axe struck the heavy defense shield once more. The impact pushed Li Qi faster toward the evacuation point and increased the distance between them. Damn it! Nahuen hissed, teeth bared. He tried again and again, throwing technique after technique at the shield, but each time the domain drained his speed and clamped his power. As a martial artist, he was helpless against the domain's restraint. He couldn't touch Li Qi. They were closing on the silver-white hull of the evacuation ship. Li Qi could see it coming into view. Their escape was almost within reach. Calm and confident, he sent a telepathic taunt to Nahuen behind him. "Nahuen, you can't catch me!" Red-rimmed, furious, Nahuen poured everything into one final acceleration and slammed into the shield. Clang! The blow landed, but he couldn't close further. Past the evacuation point was forbidden. If he crossed into the evacuation zone, the chip implanted in his brain would detonate. Frustration and rage boiled over, but there was nothing he could do. He had the speed and strength to threaten Li Qi on its own, but he couldn't break the triple domain's suppression, and the evacuation boundary kept him from getting any closer. The gap widened as Li Qi shot into the safety of the ship, the green domain light still humming faintly around him. Nahuen ground his teeth as the blue streak of his target vanished into the ship and out of reach. He had failed, at least for now. Clang! Using his momentum, Li Qi shot into the evacuation point's range. He saw Nahuen outside the extraction zone and, grinning, steered for the small ship's hatch floating above. "That damn bastard!" Nahuen snarled through gritted teeth. "You destroyed my clansman's trust in me." Nahuen had just broken through to universe rank. After today, he would no longer be able to take part in planet hunting missions. Even though he had less than 100 years left on his sentence, when he returned to Black Prison Star, he would be assigned to the universe rank area. A terrifying place. Whether he would ever leave alive was anyone's guess. A vibration at his wrist cut through his thoughts. He opened his communicator and saw a message from his last remaining clansman. Seeing the face on the light screen made him sink inward. His clansman had trusted him, and he had betrayed that trust. He had failed to protect the last one. Then the clansman shouted excitedly, "Boss, another student is heading for the evacuation point. Coordinates are." "What?" Nahuen's heart leaped. "There's another student?" He hadn't been listening closely before and hurriedly demanded, "Repeat that." "There's still, the coordinates are," the clansman repeated. Nahuen laughed out loud, a relieved, manic sound. "There's still a chance." From the hatch, Li Qi watched Nahuen laughing wildly and felt a flash of puzzlement. Is he so desperate he's lost his mind? Nahuen, still chuckling, calculated the new target's approach vector and then bypassed the evacuation point to set an ambush. In a dense forest on Chi Kunli Star, 4 criminals watched everything unfold with wide eyes. They had assumed the ruthless guy being chased by a universe rank would be dead for sure. Instead, he had slipped through, and even Nahuen hadn't been able to catch him. "This is unbelievable," the female criminal murmured. "He survived, and a universe rank couldn't take him," the one who used vicious beasts as a visual said, frowning. "That green aura around him isn't genetic primal energy. It actually slowed Nahuen down." "That sounds like a domain," the tall man guessed. "A well-developed one." "So it's a domain," the brown-furred leopard man muttered. "That's enviable." The scrawny one frowned in confusion. "That ruthless guy already entered the evacuation point. This mission should be over, but there's no announcement." "Maybe there are still students out there," the tall man began, but a light screen popped up on his communicator and cut him off. "This trial mission has ended." Back at the evacuation point, Li Qi breathed all the way out and relaxed. He closed the mission end notification and checked his communicator for the number of survivors. 11 survivors? He replayed the numbers in his head. The mission had started with 57 participants. At the start of the sudden death phase, there had been 51. Just before the evacuation point appeared, there were 13 left. Besides me, 2 others actually tried to be greedy for the full 100-point bonus. he said to himself, shaking his head. They really didn't care about their lives. Li Qi hadn't been reckless, he'd been confident. If he'd been truly chased by a universe rank, he trusted his skills to survive, not just luck. The final count is 11 survivors. That's nearly an 80% death rate, almost 4 times higher than the 20% in the planet hunting mission Rolando was in, he muttered. What he didn't know was why this mission's death toll had been so high. Nahuen had leaked the Chi Kunli star map to the criminals and even marked out the vicious beast's activity zones. That led to 6 students dying in the vicious beast hunts. The corpses gave the criminals 6 communicators, which in turn let them track students' statuses and the evacuation point location. On top of that, Nahuen himself had directly killed 20 students, nearly half the total deaths. Li Qi pulled up the mission breakdown on his screen. Hunt vicious beasts, 24 targets completed, 5 points per target, total 120 points. Hunt criminals, 3 targets completed, 25 base points per target, plus 2 extra points per rank. He did the math for the criminals. 1 constant star level 5 criminal gave him an extra 8 points, and 2 constant star level 4 criminals gave an extra 12, on top of the base 75 points, 95 points in all. Sudden mission survival. Base 50 points, plus 10 points for every 2 hours survived. He'd hit the upper bonus limit of 100 additional points, making 150. Add them up, 120 plus 95 plus 150, and he'd earned 365 points from this trial. Not a bad haul. If he'd been less cautious and hunted 2 more criminals, he might have topped 400 points, but Li Qi didn't regret being careful. He preferred living to chasing glory. With his previous remainder of 31 points added in, his total now sat at 396. He chuckled. 396 points. Comfortable. He already had the second-order telekinesis weapon Bloodblade Cone in his possession, so there was no need to spend points on a second-order telekinesis weapon. Those items, second-order telekinesis original force weapons and force armor, costed 800 to 900 points each, an order of magnitude more than first-order gear. With nearly 400 points in hand, something he had long wanted was finally within reach, a guidance session with a Territory Lord rank expert. That kind of instruction could help him push further with his domain. The small ship carried Li Qi back to the D-class transport hovering above Chi Kunli Star. Inside, he found the other survivors. Most were unfamiliar faces from the other 2 stellar cultivation camps. Some looked elated and relieved, others were hollow-eyed and sorrowful. 3 cosmic-level instructors soon arrived and took their students back to their respective camps. Sansi Stellar Cultivation Camp ended up with 4 survivors, Li Qi among them. One unlucky camp had only a single survivor, just 1 person had made it out. On the trip back to Sansi, Li Qi's reward points finally arrived in his account. Without hesitation, he exchanged them for a single session of guidance from a Territory Lord rank expert specializing in the wood domain. Sansi Stellar Cultivation Camp. A few days after his return, Li Qi Royce sat in his dorm room facing a small light screen. He read the message from the Stellar Cultivation Camp and muttered, "I can only receive guidance from Territory Lord Nan Ying in a month." When he applied for a Territory Lord rank mentor, he'd been told that appointments were required. The mentor would set the time. The treatment for Territory Lord rank mentors is so much better than for Universe rank mentors, Li Qi thought. The strong really do get preferential treatment. Universe rank mentors had to lead trial missions and accept guidance tasks at fixed times. Territory Lord rank mentors had far more freedom, even to schedule their own guidance. 1 month. Li Qi considered the time. During that month, he could exchange points for a movement secret manual. During the planetary-level hunting mission on Chi Kunli Star, when Nahuen, who had broken through to Universe rank, chased him, Li Qi saw that Nahuen possessed a short burst speed secret manual. He'd been curious about that kind of manual ever since. If I had one of those, it would be extremely useful for escaping or pursuing, provided the side effects aren't significant. Li Qi opened the exchange list and searched for movement secret manuals. After reviewing several, he settled on one, Energy Burning Escape Technique. It cost 122 points. Its side effects were minor in form. The real drawback was an enormous genetic primal energy drain. The manual worked by burning genetic primal energy to strengthen the body's force field and simultaneously propel the body to accelerate. The advantage was ease. It was simple to learn and fast to cast. The disadvantage was the consumption. Reinforcing the force field and producing thrust both required a lot of genetic primal energy, and doing both together used even more. Strengthening the body's force field or propelling the body both requires skill when performed alone, Li Qi thought. Doing both at once demands even higher skill and a certain casting time. The energy-burning escape technique trades higher energy consumption for reduced skill and casting time. That makes it easier to use. As a Psyker master, Li Qi's dependence on genetic primal energy was relatively low. His awakened ability appeared to be a very strong energy recovery, giving him unusually fast recovery of genetic primal energy. He'd noticed the quick recovery long ago and confirmed it with the camp's information. That made the energy-burning escape technique a good fit. He could afford short, intermittent uses in combat. Unless it's for escaping, I won't need to use it constantly, he told himself. With my normal consumption and recovery, I can manage short bursts. He exchanged 122 points for the manual and left to collect it. On his way, the normally sparse exchange office was crowded. The nearly 80% death rate from the last planetary-level hunting mission had spread anxiety through the students. Li Qi understood. Only such a catastrophic result would push so many to scramble for improvements. Back in his dorm, he opened the manual. Then, putting on his consciousness connector, he entered the virtual universe to cultivate the technique. The virtual universe's vast simulation could mimic the technique fully and did not consume genetic primal energy in the process. For practical testing of bodily talent limits, he also practiced the manual in the camp's real-world testing ground. With his rapid energy recovery, he could cast the technique multiple times for short durations. When activated, his speed surged to nearly twice normal, allowing him to create instant distance from enemies, a perfect complement to his Psyker Master combat style. He also reviewed his points. He'd thought himself wealthy with 396 points, but after paying for Territory Lord rank mentor guidance and the energy-burning escape technique, he only had 124 points left. It took 160 points to raise his genetic primal energy from constant star level 4 to constant star level 5 with a nutrient capsule. He'd planned to strengthen his energy rank now, but he'd have to wait until after the next hunting mission. With the energy-burning escape technique, my survival is better, so delaying the rank increase is acceptable, he decided. 1 month passed. Today was the appointment with Territory Lord Nanying. Having become proficient with the new manual, Li Qi left his dorm and walked toward the Territory Lord's residence. The building towered into the skyline, a door over 20 meters high, total height beyond 1,000 meters. Because he had an appointment, he was admitted smoothly. After passing through the massive door, he felt like he'd entered a land of giants. Every item was scaled up tenfold. A gentle, resonant voice called out, "You are Li Qi Royce." Li Qi looked toward the voice and saw an enormous chair, 8 or 9 meters tall, and armored legs the size of columns. He followed the legs upward to find a smiling man of gigantic stature. The man bowed slightly. "I am Nanying." Li Qi bowed in return. "Greetings, Territory Lord Nanying." Nanying smiled. "I am of the giant race, a branch of the human race. Though my physique is much larger than yours, I am still a legitimate member of the human race." He raised his left hand and said, "Let's talk sitting down." "Sit? Sit where?" Li Qi asked, puzzled. There was nothing for him at ground level. Whoosh, from midair, a small living room descended, a sofa and a table sized for Li Qi. "I don't like looking down on others," Nanying said, "because it's impolite." Li Qi sat on the sofa. As he did, the little living room rose until it was level with Nanying's line of sight. Nanying asked, "What do you think wood represents?" Li Qi understood that the guidance had begun. He replied, "Life." "Indeed, it is life," Nanying said, "but it is not only life, it also includes." This transitional chapter moves a little slowly, and the next part won't be finished today. I'll try to make it up tomorrow. Thanks to fellow reader, 8/10 has a cat cake for the reward. I didn't check acquired yesterday. My apologies. Chapter 68, Field Application. It's not just life, it's tenacity, absorption, growth, and even poison. the Nanying Territory Lord said. Some special plants contain the essence of the wood origin law of the universe. Li Qi frowned. He means the essence of the wood origin law, but why is he telling me this? He understood the basics of law. Normally, after a domain reached perfection at the 9th level, one would move on to comprehending law. If someone possessed a special treasure, they could sometimes comprehend law directly through it without achieving 9th level perfection. Li Qi didn't have such a treasure, so he would have to push his domain mastery to perfection and then attempt law comprehension. When you hit a bottleneck, Nanying continued, try observing plants. You might gain insight. Seeing Li Qi still puzzled, Nanying smiled. That's a suggestion from my own experience. That's how I began comprehending law, which lies beyond domain. So you've already begun comprehending law, Li Qi said, surprised. Then the implication sank in. Right. The original text explained that as one's realm improves, affinity for law increases, peaking at the World Lord rank. The World Lord rank's affinity for law was the highest, far beyond undying or venerable powerhouses. The original work had even noted that, before Luo Feng rose to prominence, some world lords in the Virtual Universe Corporation's primitive mystical region had law comprehension comparable to a champion-level undying. That Nanying was hired as a territory low-rank mentor by the Lava Empire's stellar cultivation camp already signaled extraordinary ability. It made sense he'd begun law comprehension. You may still have questions, but don't dwell on this now. Just remember it. Let's start the lesson. First, display your domain. Li Qi obeyed and released his domain. A green light spread outward from him, quickly filling the space and encompassing Nanying. Third-level domain, the Territory Lord murmured, surprised. He had expected a planetary-level domain prodigy to be at first level or, at most, second. He never imagined Li Qi's domain would already be third level after only a little over a year in the stellar cultivation camp and with no prior Territory Lord guidance. A planetary-level domain genius, Nanying had seen many, but one this raw and powerful without guidance was extraordinary. It's a third-level domain, but his application is crude. He shook his head inwardly. Li Qi simply deployed his domain to suppress and bind anyone inside it, relying on raw talent and no technique. Still, the talent was so great that even a crude third-level domain made him a top student at the Sanxi Stellar Cultivation Camp. Only a handful could defeat him. Nanying respected such natural gifts. With a casual motion, he dispelled the suppression and binding of Li Qi's domain as if shrugging off a mild breeze. Your application of domain is very crude, he said aloud. Crude? Li Qi thought of his past fights. Apart from Na Huan, the universe-rank criminal in the last hunting mission who could pursue him despite the domain's suppression, all his enemies had been crushed as soon as he unleashed his domain. He'd never realized his technique was so undeveloped. Nanying decided to show him. He released his own domain. A green glow expanded about a meter around him. This is a first-level domain, Nanying said, but with my realm and strength, even my first-level domain is comparable to your third level. Domain strength depended not only on rank, but on willpower and genetic primal energy. Nanying's first-level domain, backed by his greater strength, equaled a normal astral rank's third-level domain. Then he made it act. He thrust part of his domain forward, like a sharp spear aimed straight at Li Qi. I'll use this to break through your domain and suppress your body. He was met by resistance, far more than he'd anticipated. Nanying felt the pushback and realized Li Qi's domain strength wasn't what he'd expected for someone at astral level. To avoid being embarrassed, he poured on genetic primal energy, driving the spear-like extension with vast force. At last, his domain pierced Li Qi's and wrapped around his body, completing the suppression. Li Qi was astonished. A domain of equivalent rank can actually be broken through. He thought it through, and a realization struck. This was like the mental attack's secret arts. The soul-piercing needle, for example. You concentrate your domain in one direction and reduce control in others, he murmured. By narrowing the focus, the domain's power could be extended and intensified in that direction. Nanying listened with approval. He had taught this technique the same way to his own students. Demonstrate once, then let them grasp it. You've already understood it, he said, smiling inwardly. An astral rank domain genius's comprehension was indeed sharp. Li Qi had caught the idea from a hint, something it had taken Nanying over a day to master. Very good. Now learn domain condensation, Nanying continued. When facing an enemy with a stronger domain, this application protects your body and reduces the opponent's influence. The green light around Nanying contracted rapidly, shrinking from a meter into a thin veil that clung to his skin. With that faint layer around him, Li Qi's domain could no longer approach. By shrinking the domain's coverage, you make it denser and harder to penetrate, Nanying explained. Li Qi immediately tried the same, retracting the green glow that had spread nearly 100 meters. He felt for the limit and pulled the domain inward, shrinking it smaller and smaller. When the light drew to about 5 meters from his body, it would not contract further. That was the limit of his domain's current solidity. Nanying watched, quietly impressed. He had expected Li Qi might manage to condense down to 20 meters. He hadn't expected 5. Truly outstanding, he thought. Such talent is excellent. He's a worthy investment. Chapter 69, Heavy Investment. Li Qi's talent and his uncanny comprehension ability, coupled with his status as a planetary-level domain genius, convinced Nanying Territory Lord to invest heavily in him. The Territory Lord continued to guide Li Qi, but because of the nature of the wood domain, there wasn't much more to teach. Unlike the light domain, which could weave illusions, or the earth domain, which could crush foes with gravity, the wood domain's techniques were more limited in scope. After showing Li Qi how to expand and contract his domain to interfere with an opponent's perception and movement, Nanying had nothing further to offer. "All right," Nanying said at last. "Today's guidance ends here. I have nothing more to teach you about the domain." If regulations hadn't forbidden it, Nanying would have been willing to pass along a few secret techniques. But the Stellar Cultivation Camp's rules were strict. Li Qi rose, bowed respectfully, and said, "Thank you for your guidance, Mentor Nanying." He began to rise into the air, preparing to leave. "Wait a moment," Nanying called after him. "I have a gift for you." "A gift?" Li Qi stopped, puzzled. He had not expected such generosity. Nanying smiled. "I imagine you're curious why. Consider it an investment. Your talent is exceptional. I'm putting my resources into you." With that, he opened his right hand. Resting in his palm was a thin sliver of fiery red metal, only 4 or 5 centimeters long. It seemed almost insignificant in the vast hand of a territory lord, but it glittered with an unhealthy brilliance and radiated a faint, terrifying aura that set Li Qi's nerves on edge. "This is..." Li Qi's eyes widened. It was obviously no ordinary scrap. Nanying's expression grew a touch reluctant as he explained, "A fifth-order mind-energy weapon fragment. They say it was shattered from an undying spiritual god's weapon, so it carries a trace of an undying spiritual god's aura." Li Qi's heart leaped. A fifth-order mind-energy weapon, one bearing an undying spiritual god's residue, was worth at least as much as an ordinary fourth-order original force weapon. He could hardly believe Nanying would offer such a treasure as an investment. "Mentor Nanying," Li Qi began, incredulous, "are you serious?" "I'm serious. It's yours." Nanying didn't hesitate. "This fragment contains partial fire origin law secret patterns. I comprehend the wood origin law. I can't spare the time to study the secret patterns of another origin. It's useless to me, so I'm giving it to you." Li Qi understood then why a territory lord would be willing to part with such an item. For most territory lords, mastering one origin law was already arduous. They had neither the time nor the inclination to learn another. Still, it was their first meeting, and such largesse was astonishing. He hesitated out of politeness. "This gift is too valuable," he said at last. "I cannot accept it." "It's a gift and an investment," Nanying replied, chuckling. "If you think it's valuable, then later, when you rise, return the favor. If you gain a foothold in a top-tier power, a little help from you will be enough to repay this gift." As one of the 8 territory lord rank mentors of the Sand Sea Stellar Cultivation Camp and a servant of the Lava Empire for nearly 400,000 years, Nanying's vision stretched far beyond that of common territory lords. He had seen many planetary-level domain genius, but none like Li Qi. That was why he staked so much on him. In the past, he'd gifted fourth-order original force weapon fragments with some wood law patterns, mostly incomplete and hard to use. This time, he offered a full fifth-order mind-energy weapon fragment with complete fire law patterns. That distinction mattered. The latter could genuinely help someone comprehend a law. Hearing this, and seeing the piece itself, Li Qi's hesitation melted. Even if the fragment contained fire rather than wood patterns, a working aid to comprehension was priceless. He had to accept. "If you insist, Mentor Nanying, then I will accept it," he said with a bow. Nanying's face eased into a smile. "Good." He looked almost relieved. "Finally, it's given away." Leaning in a little, he produced a small crimson metal box no larger than a palm. It shimmered with light. "This is a special storage box made of E-grade crimson light zirconium. It will seal the fragment so its aura won't leak and protect you if you carry it on your person." He used his mind power and set both the metal fragment and the crimson box on the table in front of Li Qi. "They are both yours now," he said. "There's a note inside with the secret pattern control method for opening and closing it. Learn it, and you can operate the box freely." Li Qi opened the box and found the note as promised. He placed the fiery red fragment inside. Once sealed, its ominous aura vanished. The box itself was barely over a centimeter thick, perfect for carrying without drawing attention. Relief and gratitude filled him. He bowed again. "Thank you, Mentor Nanying." "No need." Nanying waved the thanks away. "Like I said, this is an investment. Study its operation when you return." Li Qi bowed once more and departed. When he was gone, Nanying stood watching, murmuring after a long moment, "I hope you won't disappoint me." Nanying had mentored in the San Sea Stellar Cultivation Camp for nearly 400,000 years and had invested in several prodigies before, each time giving away fourth-order fragments, but he'd never seen returns. The most promising student he supported had entered the Qianwu dojo through the Cosmic Peak Genius Battle and been cultivated heavily, yet the path to greatness had still claimed him. This time, however, he had placed a heavier bet. Rumor, unofficial and whispered, had reached him that the Lava Empire's emperor, the Lava World Master, also regarded this young man highly. If the emperor himself favored Li Qi, the territory lord had every reason to believe this investment might finally pay off. If Li Qi could rise to become an undying spiritual god and one day aid Nanying in return, it might even improve Nanying's own slim chances at undying cultivation. That hope was the real reason he'd given so generously. Chapter 70. Race Against Time to Find Teammates. After leaving Nanying's residence, Li Qi returned to his dorm in high spirits. Back in his room, he reached for his chest and his force armor split open automatically, revealing the crimson light box inside. The moment he took it out, a faint, profound, and terrifying aura seeped from the box. Using his mind power, he extracted the note with the secret activation pattern for the box's switch, then closed it again to seal the aura. The dormitory area is too crowded, too many eyes. The aura isolation here isn't good. It's not the place to contemplate a fifth-order mind-energy weapon fragment, he thought. A treasure like a fifth-order fragment was far too valuable. If anyone saw it, it would draw covetous attention. A cultivation quiet room would be better. Good soundproofing and much better isolation. After committing the switch pattern to memory, he opened and closed the box a few times to make sure he'd learned it correctly. Then he made his way to the cultivation quiet rooms at the San Sea Stellar Cultivation Camp. Inside an empty room, he shut the door, opened the crimson light box, and withdrew the fiery red fragment that contained the law pattern of the origin of fire. The same faint, overwhelming aura pulsed out, and he examined the fragment carefully, tracing every nuance. He stared for a long time without making any breakthrough. "Law isn't easy," he admitted. "I haven't even comprehended the domain of fire yet. Trying to grasp law with just a fifth-order fragment was too ambitious." He placed the fragment back into the box and closed it, thinking instead about the other value it held. Besides the origin of fire pattern, the fragment carries the residual aura of an undying spiritual god. That could temper my will. While he studied the law pattern, he also had to resist that oppressive aura. The exertion of defending his mind felt like a training in itself. After some time, he sensed his will strengthening. Will mattered. A weak will could lose a soul battle to an opponent of equal realm, no matter how powerful their soul was. Coming back to the quiet room regularly will let me try to comprehend the law and temper my will at the same time, he decided. But points were short. With Borswell still at the San Sea camp, Li Qi needed to raise his genetic primal energy rank fast. That meant applying for a trial mission to earn points. He opened his communicator and submitted his application. He'd expected a delay of 10 days to 2 weeks before an assignment came through, but to his surprise, the Stellar Cultivation Camp's dispatch headquarters replied in just 2 days. The mission was scheduled almost immediately. On board the ship bound for the mission planet, Li Qi remembered the last hunting mission's extremely high mortality and realized the camp must be in a state of intense internal competition. The other camps would be the same, especially the one that only had a single survivor. The pressure there would be even worse. Then he read the mission briefing and his eyes widened. There are 132 participants? Of the 3 trial missions he'd taken before, the largest had been the hunting mission with 57 people. Now this collection mission had 132. It felt like the camp was playing games. Something else in the briefing confirmed his suspicion. Time race? He read aloud. The notice explained, students would be ranked by both the completion of the collection objectives and the time taken. Higher-ranked students would receive extra points. Lower-ranked students would lose basic mission reward points. Middle ranks received no bonus or penalty. Both the upper and lower tiers were split into 3 levels. The top 3, top 10, and top 30 would get descending reward tiers. The bottom 3, bottom 10, and bottom 30 would suffer proportional point reductions. So it's a time race, Li Qi muttered. The camp is encouraging competition. There's no ban on fights or on forming teams. He realized how important teammates would be. Collection missions relied on gathering specified materials. With trustworthy partners who shared the same targets, a team could divide the work and finish far faster than a lone wolf. To avoid being ranked low, I've got to find people to cooperate with. At the same time, he worried about the possibility of open conflict. If there were no rules against seizing materials from other students, things could turn ugly. He didn't want to become a thief. Ruining his reputation and betraying his classmates wasn't an option. If someone was a criminal, then force would be justified. But these were fellow students. Competition didn't have to mean hostility. He resolved to seek out allies. Leaving his room, Li Qi headed for the ship's common lounge. In the corridor, he saw clusters of students, pairs and trios talking strategies, clearly all searching for teammates. In the lounge, he scanned the crowd, but didn't recognize anyone. He'd been at the camp a little over a year, mostly on missions or locked away studying secret technique scriptures. He'd hardly socialized, so it was unsurprising he knew so few faces. Still, many of the students noticed him. He was the only planetary-level domain genius at San Sea Camp, and the reputation that came with that was immense. More than that, he'd survived the last hunting mission, the one with massively high mortality, and been the only student to complete the sudden extra task for 100 bonus points. They all knew who he was, but none of them approached. Li Qi felt a pang of resignation. Seems I'm only cut out to be a lone wolf. He started to turn back toward his room, giving up on finding teammates, when someone stepped around the corner and came over to greet him. Chapter 71. Teammates and Competition. Rolando, with his striking blue hair, walked up to greet him. Li Qi, didn't expect to run into you here. Oh, it's you, Rolando. Li Qi's eyes brightened. He'd been worrying about finding teammates, and now an acquaintance had conveniently appeared. Rolando studied him curiously. You're applying for a new trial so fast? Didn't you just finish a hunting mission on a planet with an extremely high death rate? No choice. I'm short on points. Li Qi shrugged. I just traded my points for a second-order telekinesis weapon. When he first arrived at the San Sea Stellar Cultivation Camp, he'd told people he comprehended his domain on the way in and had therefore passed up the camp's special rewards. To make that story hold, he now claimed he'd spent his points on the weapon. Fortunately, the last planetary hunting mission had netted him a lot of points, and Rolando had no way to check his balance. Second-order telekinesis weapon? Rolando's eyes widened in disbelief. You've been at the camp just over a year, and you can already exchange for a second-order weapon? Rolando had been at the San Sea camp for more than a decade and was still using a first-order mind energy weapon, the Cloud Soaring Sword. A newcomer exchanging for a second-order weapon seemed unbelievable. Li Qi smiled and played it off. Mainly from the last trial mission. How many points did you get? Rolando pressed. Just a few hundred, Li Qi said, smiling. Rolando's envy surfaced. Just a few hundred. The exchange price for a second-order telekinesis weapon hovered around 800 points. A few hundred implied he'd earned 500 or 600 at least. Despite the jealousy, Rolando knew he'd never take part in that kind of risky planetary hunting mission. Being targeted by a universe-ranked criminal was something you only did if you had nothing to lose. He admired Li Qi's nerve. Coveting those extra 100 points in such circumstances was courting death. This trial mission is different, Li Qi said. You need teammates to place high in the time competition. Have you found anyone yet? Rolando pointed toward the lounge. I was just about to look. Don't bother. Let's team up. Li Qi cut to the chase. Rolando hesitated with a calculating look. I'm willing to team up, but I have one condition. Condition? Li Qi frowned. Tell me. Rolando narrowed his eyes. Another match in the virtual universe. He smiled. Of course, win or lose, I'll still team up with you. A match? Li Qi's tension eased. He thought for a moment, then chuckled. You still dare challenge me after knowing I'm a planetary-level domain genius? So you've comprehended a domain? You guessed that fast. Rolando grinned. Actually, I owe you for that. During our wager, your domain performance gave me insight. I finally comprehended domain 6 months ago. You've comprehended a domain. Now that you don't have the domain advantage, are you still brave enough to match me? Rolando's tone carried the same provocation he'd used during their last wager. Li Qi lifted an eyebrow. A match, then. What is there to fear? He was domain triple. How could he be afraid of someone who had only recently comprehended a domain? Rolando nodded. Good. Let's go back and enter the San Sea camp in the virtual universe. Meet me at Plaza number 3. Li Qi watched him turn and head off. Plaza number 3, that was where they'd had their last wager. Li Qi smiled to himself. He'd beaten Rolando last time. Rolando wanted a rematch more to redeem his pride than because he truly expected to win. Still, Rolando had agreed to team up, so Li Qi decided to play along. Back in his room, Li Qi put on his consciousness sensor and logged into the virtual universe. He met Rolando at Plaza number 3. As he approached, a light screen popped up. Rolando's challenge invitation. Li Qi clicked accept with a teasing smile. Are you that eager to lose? Rolando raised an eyebrow. Who knows who will lose? Don't go blaming me for bullying you later, Li Qi retorted and tapped accept. The combat space initiated. Please select your weapons and battle armor, the prompt intoned. Li Qi studied the display. Rolando's cloud-soaring sword was a tricky, purely offensive mind energy weapon that could separate and recombine, perfect for unpredictable close-quarters offense. Li Qi's heavy defense disc in reality favored defense, but had a powerful attack form. He considered the options and grinned. The system allowed 2 weapons and 1 shield. Li Qi chose the heavy defense disc as his mind energy weapon, a primal force battle blade he'd used before in the virtual universe, and a hexagonal shield. Selections locked. The simulated environment shifted. A blazing sun beat down on a desert plain. Li Qi rose into the air and spotted a black dot in the distance. Rolando. He surged toward it. With a metallic whine, the heavy defense disc unfurled into black metal segments, forming a circular blade that spun at his side. Then it condensed into a streak of black light and shot toward the distant point with Li Qi trailing behind. Whoosh! Silver light streaked toward them. Rolando's Po Xiao swords, multiple shimmering blades under his control. Li Qi's black circular disc slammed into one silver light and crushed it, momentum unspent. Rolando's divine thought analyzed the incoming weapon instantly. It's the attack form of the heavy defense disc, he realized. 2 more Po Xiao swords sliced through the air, clipping the disc and bleeding off some of its force. Then Rolando used his own shield to intercept it. Li Qi kept moving, switching between the disc's ranged strike and close combat. He drew his primal force blade, slashed and parried with the hexagonal shield, and drove forward through the interference of the remaining silver lights. With the desert sun bearing down and sand whipping at their feet, Li Qi closed the distance and launched himself straight at Rolando. Their weapons met amid a shower of light, steel against light, domain pressure humming between them, as the rematch began in earnest. Chapter 72, Victory and Conversation. Seeing Li Qi charge at him, Rolando sneered inwardly. "I've been waiting for you. Last time you ambushed me with your domain. This time I won't lose." Rolando released his domain. A green light rippled outward from him, filling a 20-meter radius. Clad in force armor and wielding a sword in one hand and a round shield in the other, he flew through the green glow toward Li Qi. When Rolando opened his domain and rushed him, Li Qi only sighed inwardly. If this had been any other student who had just grasped domain, they might have used it to cancel Rolando's. But unfortunately for Rolando, he'd met Li Qi. Li Qi's own domain snapped open. A different green light solidified around him, compressing into a 5-meter sphere. Protected by that compact, rock-solid field, he plunged straight into Rolando's larger domain. It was like a boulder thrown into a small pond. The pond couldn't swallow the boulder. Rolando's confidence wavered. What? Rolando's face changed. He had spent points consulting a territory lord rank mentor and thought he understood how to use his domain. He expected only small differences between users. He had not expected Li Qi's domain control to be far superior. Rolando's domain had been at its smallest, 20 meters, while Li Qi's shrank down to 5, or even less, and remained unshakable. Before Rolando could react, Li Qi's domain pushed outward again, breaching Rolando's protective field and enveloping him. "How is that possible?" he shouted, alarmed as his body felt bound and suppressed. The expansion pinned him in place. Rolando forced himself to shrink his domain further, even beyond its previous limit. It contracted another 2 meters, but for all his effort, the binding held. He couldn't break free. Li Qi closed the distance and struck. Rolando raised his round shield and took the first blow, but the domain's suppression had slowed his reactions. He only managed to block one hit. The second strike slammed into his shoulder. His force armor absorbed most of it, limiting the damage. The third cut across his neck, and though Li Qi's force amplification inside the stellar cultivation camp was weak, only a little over 8 times, it left a grave wound, but not a kill. The fourth strike was blocked at the cost of an arm. The blow severed Rolando's limb. The fifth hit finished him. Rolando's body dissolved into white light and vanished from the combat space. Virtual Universe, San C Stellar Cultivation Camp, Plaza Number 3. Rolando reappeared in Plaza Number 3, staring at his hands in a daze. "I lost. Again." Confusion and shock churned through him. How could Li Qi's domain be so strong? It had suppressed him to the point he could barely defend against close-quarters attacks. In raw melee ability, Li Qi hadn't been impressive, probably near the bottom of the students in the camp. But under that domain suppression, even Rolando's basic defenses had crumbled. He thought over the fight. If Li Qi were only a domain first-level practitioner, he could not have been dominated like that. "His domain isn't first level," Rolando muttered to himself. Li Qi exited the combat space as well and walked over, shaking his head gently. "I told you you weren't my match, but you didn't believe me." Rolando looked up and said with certainty, "Your domain isn't first level." "Of course it isn't," Li Qi answered casually. "If you'd only just comprehended domain, I wouldn't have dared say I could beat you." Rolando pushed. "What level is your domain exactly?" It felt stronger than second level. He had fought students at domain second level before and knew their fields didn't exert the kind of suppression Li Qi had shown. Li Qi smiled. "It's not second. I recently broke through to domain third level." "Third level?" Rolando's eyes widened. Seeing Li Qi's still youthful face, envy and admiration mixed in him. If Li Qi were under 30 and already at domain third level, that was the talent of a planetary-level domain prodigy, truly enviable. "Lucky to be my teammate," he said, forcing a laugh. "With the two of us on the same side, we should rank high in the trial mission." Li Qi wasn't so optimistic. "Hard to say. If the Stellar Cultivation Camp doesn't give us a map of where the mission targets are, it'll be difficult to find many targets on a single planet, especially Yao beasts and vicious beasts." Rolando frowned. He hadn't considered that. With so many students taking part, if the camp didn't provide target coordinates, students would rush around grabbing whatever they could. That would inevitably lead to conflicts and casualties. If the camp wanted low death rates for collection missions, it would make sense to provide locations. "If they don't provide a map," Rolando said. the death toll could go up a lot. That wouldn't match the usual reputation of collection missions being relatively safe. Li Qi tilted his head. Has the Stellar Cultivation Camp officially said collection missions have a low death rate? Rolando hesitated. They haven't announced it, but everyone just assumes collection missions are low risk. It's how things have been described among the three major camps for a long time. Li Qi scoffed softly. Last time, during the planet hunting mission, a criminal broke through to universe rank while the mission was ongoing. The camp didn't stop the mission or forbid the universe rank criminal from engaging students. Instead, they issued an urgent mission, and the evacuation coordinates for that urgent mission were broadcast to everyone's communicators. Rolando's eyes widened at that. Li Qi's reminder made him see that the camp's actions could be unpredictable. Even if collection missions were generally safer, exceptions had happened. The two of them stood in the plaza, considering the upcoming trial with a little less certainty than before. Chapter 73. Rules of this trial mission. The communicators of every student at the evacuation point are visible, Rolando exclaimed. Doesn't that mean even criminals can see the evacuation point? He'd taken part in planetary hunting missions before and knew what that implied. If a student died at the hands of criminals, their communicator would fall into those criminals' hands. With it, criminals could study the student's mission and use the mission objectives as bait to hunt others. Against only astral rank criminals, the students might have the upper hand, but if universe rank criminals were involved, the thought made Rolando shiver. Against a trap laid by a universe rank expert, astral rank students would stand little chance. Of course. Otherwise, how could the death rate in the last planetary hunting mission have been nearly 80%? Li Qi sighed. You should know, I'm not the only one trying to get the extra 100 points. 2 other students wanted the same bonus. They didn't make it to the evacuation point alive. Once a universe-rank criminal finds you, getting into the evacuation point alive is extremely difficult. Rolando fell silent. If he were being hunted by a universe-rank expert, he probably wouldn't survive either. He felt bitter about it. The high officials of the Lava Empire seemed to care little for the lives of camp students like them. What Rolando didn't realize was that the officials responsible for the Stellar Cultivation Camp in the Lava Empire truly saw the students' deaths as almost irrelevant. Everyone entering the camp was warned beforehand that the death rate could be very high, and every student signed a contract absolving the camp of responsibility for any fatalities. Because they had been warned and had signed away liability, the camp's leaders pushed students to the limit, so long as the overall death rate stayed within their tolerated bounds. Those who survived this brutal selection, apart from those who quit after 3 trial missions, became exceptionally strong. Many broke through to universe rank. A few managed the rarer ascents to Domain Lord or World Lord. Some of the World Lords had gone on to the Lava Secret Realm and the Cosmic Peak Genius Battle, but even the significant chance of breaking through to universe rank was enough for many families to expend great resources to send relatives into the camp. The slim chances of ascending even higher only made it more worthwhile. That was why families still sent members to the camp despite its brutal attrition. So don't underestimate the Stellar Cultivation Camp's willingness to stir up trouble, Li Qi warned. He added, I think this trial mission will actively promote competition among students. They might even set rules that force students to fight. Rolando frowned. I'm hoping for the best. They'll reveal the map of objectives, then maybe not reveal it, but tacitly allow competition. And finally, what you just said. Li Qi sighed. I hope I'm overthinking it too, but until the camp sends new instructions, we should prepare for the worst. Rolando agreed. They ended the conversation, promising to meet when new news arrived, then left the virtual universe to return to reality and cultivate separately. A few days later, the Stellar Cultivation Camp released a new message. The two met again at Terminal 3 in the virtual universe. Li Qi, you were right. Rolando's face was grave. The camp is encouraging competition, and they've actually put rules in place for it. The mission lasts 2 months. After the trial begins, a map will be dropped at irregular intervals each day. The drop point appears randomly on the planet, and once a map drops, its coordinates are announced. The map can't be opened for 1 hour, and during that hour, it can be seized. Whoever obtains the map will have their coordinates and it's announced every 10 minutes for that hour. They allow teams, but students may not forward maps to others. And, to encourage competition, the coordinates of students who get maps will be announced. Rolando had spent over a decade in the Stellar Cultivation Camp and participated in nearly 10 trial missions, but he'd never seen rules that pushed competition this aggressively. Li Chi thought for a moment. The map shows all mission objective locations. There are 132 students in this trial. Since some students will team up, the demand for maps is probably around 40. With 20 days left after an initial period, there's enough time to collect all objectives. Getting the map earlier is crucial to rank well in the time race. Getting it a day sooner gives you an extra day to collect targets. Those who get maps in the first few days can lock in high rankings for themselves and teammates. We have to get a map within the first 10 days if we don't want to risk a low ranking. Rolando nodded. He didn't know how big the other teams were. If early map recipients had many teammates, their rankings would be secure. If their own map didn't come until after 10 days, they could be unlucky and fall low enough to lose base mission points. He narrowed his eyes. Then let's go snatch maps from others. With our strength combined, getting a map in those first few days shouldn't be a problem. You can steal maps, Li Chi said, but don't kill anyone. That's exactly what I was going to say. Rolando raised an eyebrow and smiled. Looks like we're both people of principle. He was serious. Setting a precedent for killing over treasure would be dangerous. Once murder became an acceptable shortcut, people would keep doing it for profit. Many star pirates had started that way. The money from robbing a ship and selling it was so large it outstripped years or decades of honest labor. If the target is a criminal, I won't mind killing them for the points. Rolando added, but these are our fellow camp students. We're rivals, but it doesn't have to be murderous. Li Chi nodded. Good. If we agree on that, we won't keep clashing over whether to kill during the mission. Rolando shrugged. You should be more worried about accidentally killing someone yourself. Li Chi looked puzzled. What do you mean? You have a second-order telekinesis weapon. It's much stronger than a first-order one. If you don't hold back. Rolando let the rest hang in the air. His meaning was clear. Li Chi chuckled softly. Don't worry about me. Once we both unleash our domains, who would dare come and snatch the map? Rolando was caught off guard, then couldn't help laughing as well. Chapter 74. Unexpected Gains. That's true. Ordinary students wouldn't dare approach once we expand our domain, Rolando said with a smile, then changed the subject. But the Stellar Cultivation Camp isn't just about scaring off non-domain students. Those with domains won't be afraid of us. Then let's fight them. Li Chi's eyes narrowed. I want to see what other domain-level students can do. He had been in the Stellar Cultivation Camp long enough to have sparred with Rolando, but he hadn't faced anyone else who had comprehended a domain. This trial would be a good chance to test himself against other domain practitioners. Rolando shrugged helplessly. With the camp encouraging competition, this trial mission would be different from the easier ones before. Encounters with other domain-level students were inevitable. If they clashed over the map, there would be only one way to resolve it: fight. The sooner they secured the map, the more time they'd have to gather resources and the better their chance in the time rankings. All right, that's enough for today. Let's go back and rest. When we reach the trial planet, we'll try to get the map as early as possible, Li Chi said. Rolando nodded, and Li Chi left the virtual universe. In the ship's cabin, he removed his consciousness sensor and opened the display to check the mission details. He reviewed previous missions and frowned. The Stellar Cultivation Camp issues strange missions. The last planetary hunting mission didn't stop even when a criminal broke through to universe rank, and they didn't forbid that universe rank criminal Na Huen from hunting students. With the new time competition element added to this trial, a thought nagged at him. Am I being targeted by the Stellar Cultivation Camp? He wondered. He shook his head. The camp had always been capricious when issuing missions. He couldn't be sure yet. Only if problems arose in the next few missions would it be proof. Still, Being watched by the Lava Empire's emperor made the suspicion hard to shake. Perhaps higher-ups were deliberately raising the difficulty to temper him. Time passed. A month later, 3 spaceships arrived at Commodity Star from different directions. Commodity Star was an unmodified life planet with a harsh environment. Only beings at or above planetary level could survive comfortably. Its main inhabitants were intelligent Yao beasts, the strongest of which reached star-level 9th order. An hour after arrival, the 3 ships began orbiting the planet, about 100,000 kilometers in diameter, and then deployed students in batches. Li-Chi and Rolando, as teammates, were deployed together. The other students who saw them immediately fled. Everyone from the San-Sea Stellar Cultivation Camp knew Li-Chi's reputation as a planetary-level domain prodigy and didn't want to provoke him. They were above a forest in a hilly region. Li-Chi scanned the terrain. "Let's find a place to wait, check the mission objectives, and wait for the map to drop," he told Rolando. Rolando agreed. Li-Chi pointed toward a tall mountain on the horizon. "Over there." They streaked toward it like twin arrows. As they neared the peak, an angry cry split the air. A flying Yao beast with a wingspan over 50 meters burst from the mountaintop, the very creature that had built the nest there. Rolando scanned it. "Star level, 9th order. Kill it," he said. The beast's gaze was full of hostility. It wouldn't let them pass. Li-Chi nodded. "Fine." A blood-red streak of light, Li-Chi's blood edge blade, formed from his blood blade cone, shot forward, while Rolando's silver arc of light from his cloud-soaring sword followed. The 2 attacks struck the Yao beast with metallic clangs. Feathers and blood flew as the weapons found purchase against its sturdy hide. Intelligent though it was, the beast recognized the 2 as threats and lunged for them. "It's time to expand my domain," Rolando called out. Seeing his blade's attacks limited against the beast's feathered armor, he pushed his domain outward. A green halo centered on him surged forward, suppressing the beast. Watching Li-Chi's blood-edge blade tear into the creature, Rolando felt a twinge of envy. The blood blade cone Li-Chi had exchanged for was a 2nd-order low-grade mind energy weapon. Its power far outmatched Rolando's cloud-soaring sword, a 1st-order mind energy weapon with limited amplitude patterns. The blood blade cone had cost nearly 800 points. At his current income, he'd need about 4 trial missions to afford one. The Yao beast screamed in terror. This was its first encounter with the domain, and it couldn't get free from the suppression. Under the combined assault and domain pressure, the star-level 9th order beast was dead within a minute. Li-Chi watched the corpse fall and thought to himself, "Yao beasts have intelligence, but at the same rank, their hides are a bit less tough than unintelligent, vicious beasts." "Let's check its nest," he said, and was the first to fly up toward the mountaintop den. They entered the nest together. It had been constructed from bones, branches, and soil, typical of a flying Yao beast's lair. "With the scent of that beast here, others shouldn't come," Li-Chi said, opening his communicator. He swiped through the mission interface on his display and was briefly surprised. "I didn't expect to find an unexpected gain just by casually looking for a place." Chapter 75, Rush to the Map Drop Point. Just as they entered the Yao beast's lair, Rolando landed beside Li-Chi and asked in confusion, "What happened?" Li-Chi answered, "The avian Yao beast we just killed was one of the bonus objectives for this collection mission." "A bonus objective?" Rolando's eyes brightened. He pulled up his communicator. The light screen flashed, and he tapped rapidly, scrolling through the mission details. "Ha! This is an unexpected gain." He read aloud with a grin. "Extra objective. 9th order 5-colored owl. Kill it, collect 1 eyeball, and hold it for 10 minutes to get 30 points." "I'll grab the eyeball," Rolando said. He flew out of the lair, returned a short while later, and 2 eyeballs the size of soccer balls floated beside him. "Li-Chi, this one's yours." An eyeball drifted over to Li-Chi. He used his mind power to secure it and nodded. For this trial mission, there are 40 basic collection objectives. Collecting them all yields different point values that add up to 150 points. There are 10 extra objectives as well, each worth 30 points. We've already finished one. All students have the same extra objectives. Let's check the basic objectives now. Rolando scanned the list with him. Okay, they went through the basic objectives and finished checking in under a minute. We only have 8 different basic objectives to collect. Thankfully, not too many, Rolando said with relief. Otherwise, teaming up would have been less useful. Li Qi agreed, then proposed, once we both complete the objectives we share, we'll split up to collect the rest on our own. Then we meet back here and go after the extra objectives together. Rolando nodded. Let's stick to that plan. Now we wait for the map to be released. The competition depended on how fast each student completed the basic collection objectives. Their cooperation was temporary. They weren't close enough yet to help each other finish their individual tasks, so they waited in silence. More than 2 hours later, the Stellar Cultivation Camp sent a notice. The map was about to be released. After another half hour of tense waiting, Rolando stood. The map's about to drop. Li Qi opened his communicator as well. Across Kuka Star, in caves, tree hollows, and underground tunnels, students clustered around their light screens, waiting. A soft vibration buzzed through their communicators. Li Qi and Rolando both exclaimed, "It's here!" The universal language text appeared. Map officially released. Coordinates are. Li Qi glanced toward the direction indicated, then shot into the sky. Rolando followed almost immediately. After a few minutes of flight, their communicators vibrated again. They stopped and checked. The camp's message said someone else had already acquired the map and broadcast their coordinates. The map was taken so fast, Rolando transmitted. Maybe it was released right near them, Li Qi guessed, then added, "According to these coordinates, we aren't far. We can make it in time." The map holder's coordinates would be broadcast every 10 minutes for an hour, so they had a window to intercept. Neither wanted to miss the chance. The two mounted their mind energy weapons and continued accelerating toward the map's location. Rolando rode the cloud-soaring sword in its cloud-piercing shuttle form. Li Qi used a first-order telekinesis tool, the heavy defense disc, instead of his second-order bloodblade cone for the flight. After 10 minutes, their communicators buzzed again. This time, they didn't stop, only glanced at the screen. "The map coordinates are very close," Rolando transmitted. "But the holder doesn't seem to be moving." "Even better," Li Qi replied. "We can get there faster if they stay put." They arrived shortly thereafter and found the scene strangely tense. Dozens of figures hung in the air, spread around the coordinates in small groups. In the center, 3 students, 2 men and 1 woman, floated calmly, while more than 40 other students formed a loose ring around them, all looking apprehensive and unwilling to make the first move. "Why are there so many people?" Rolando whispered, surprised. One of the locals nearby recognized the trio. "Ian, Kadini ya, Akemu," he muttered, and Rolando understood why no one dared attack. The 3 at the center were domain-level cultivators cooperating together. Li Qi's eyes widened. "Ian," he murmured. He knew Ian. Years earlier, Governor Lorenzo of Kukastar had told him he might meet his disciple Ian at the Stellar Cultivation Camp. He hadn't expected that meeting to be surrounded like this. A student from the San C Stellar Cultivation Camp noticed Li Qi and Rolando arriving and whispered, "Another domain level arrived. It's the planetary genius Li Qi." His teammate added, seeing Rolando, "Wait, there are 2. Rolando has comprehended a domain too." "Heh, this just got interesting," another student said. "Our San C camp brought 5 domain-level students. The other 2 camps have 4 each. I wonder if it'll come to blows." Someone else frowned upon seeing the domain-level students from the other camps and remarked, "Hard to say, but it looks like the domain students from the other camps might team up." Ian, who stood in the center, saw Li Qi land. With a wave of his mind, he sent out a transmission. Chapter 76, Join Hands to Seize the Map. Li Qi Royce, I didn't expect that after only 3 years apart, you've already become a planetary-level domain genius at the San C Stellar Cultivation Camp, Ian transmitted. "I heard the name a year ago and thought it was just someone with the same name," Ian continued. "I didn't expect it really was you." To be honest, when Ian first learned a planetary-level domain genius named Li Qi Royce had entered the San C camp, he too assumed it was a namesake. When he left Kukastar, Li Qi had still been at the apprentice level. To rise so far in just over 3 years was startling. Li Qi replied via transmission, "Mentor Ian, long time no see. You don't have to call me mentor anymore. I'm no longer with Kaoguang Academy. I'm a student here at the San C camp now, just like you." Ian answered. Are you here to snatch the map as well? Ian asked. Everyone who comes is here for the map. We are no exception, Li Chi said. Li Chi, how about we join forces? Ian proposed. Join forces? Li Chi hesitated. Ian had helped him back when Ian had been a mentor at Chaoguang Academy. Li Chi still owed him a favor. Now there was a chance to return it. Teaming up would also benefit Rolando and himself. He inclined toward agreeing, but wanted to hear the terms first. How do you propose we join forces? He transmitted. Today you help us get the map, and tomorrow we'll help you get yours, Ian said. I won't hide it. Among the domain-level students here, it's not just the three of us. There are domain-level students from 2 other stellar cultivation camps as well. Hearing that, Li Chi thought it through silently. If it had only been the 3 in the center, and if he truly went all out with Rolando supporting, they might have managed. But with additional domain-level students from other camps present, any sudden move to snatch the map could end in a chaotic scramble where opportunists swooped in and reaped the benefit. Li Chi transmitted Ian's proposal to Rolando and explained the terms. Rolando's face flashed with surprise. Then he quickly transmitted back. Join forces. Of course we should join forces. Their strength is formidable. It will be difficult to beat them with just our own power. Very strong? Li Chi admitted he didn't know much about the other camps' domain-level students. How strong? Kdnia and Akemu are both domain-level 2, Rolando replied. As for Ian, he's incredibly strong. When he first entered the Sand Sea camp, his domain cultivation was already very deep. Word is he was at domain level 4 when he came in. Domain level 4 upon entry? Li Chi was surprised. He hadn't realized the former Chaoguang mentor was so powerful. He realized, too, that someone who produced a domain level 4 like Ian, Kuka Star Governor Lorenzo, who had taught Ian, must also be extraordinary. Ian asked, Have you decided? Are you willing to join us? Li Chi transmitted back, We agree. Excellent. Ian's voice held a trace of pleasure. Come over here. Li Chi told Rolando, Let's go. They flew toward the trio in the center, moving deliberately, not quickly. Their approach drew the attention of the surrounding 40 or so students. One student asked in confusion, Are they going to attack? They're moving so slowly, it's more like they're going to join them, another replied, frowning. Join forces. Join forces? Does that mean today's map is lost to the rest of us? Seeing Li Chi and Rolando nearing the 3 in the center, the other students realized the 5 were forming an alliance. 5 domain-level students joining forces, someone exclaimed. Forget it. Today's map is out of reach. Several small teams from the Sand Sea camp, seeing no hope, turned and left. They're leaving without even trying. Could all 5 really be domain-level students? Others from the 2 visiting camps speculated. No one wanted to be the first to test the newcomers. Among them was someone wielding a second-order telekinetic weapon, the Bloodblade Cone. A reckless clash could cause severe injury or worse. Rolando, Li Chi transmitted, unleash your domain and scare them off. No problem, Rolando replied. Among the 5, his domain was the weakest. This was a rare chance to use it to intimidate the others. He opened his domain, and a green light pulsed outward from him, pressing down and suppressing everything it touched. It's a domain, voices called out. One of those newcomers is domain level, and the other one, murmurs rippled. Could all 5 of them really be domain level? Expressions shifted among the students from the other camps. They read the same thought in each other's faces. Retreat. What do we do? They have 5 domain-level fighters. 5 domain-level fighters, and one of them has a second-order telekinetic weapon. There's no chance if they all act together. The would-be challengers, having seen a domain unleashed and recognizing the odds, began to withdraw. Let's go. We'll let them have today's map, one domain-level student said, and he left. Seeing him go, the others followed suit. Kdnia smiled. They're gone. Akemu nodded. The map's ours to claim. Now we just wait for it to unlock. Li Chi, Rolando, thank you for your help today, Ian said. According to the camp rules, map sharing is limited to 3 people. But you can act with us. If your targets overlap with ours, we'll help each other out now, and tomorrow we'll help you in return. Li Chi and Rolando exchanged a look and accepted gladly. They understood Ian's meaning. Even though a single map couldn't be shared among more than 3 people, they could coordinate and cooperate. If their objectives coincided, they'd both benefit. So the five of them cooperated. Before the map released on the second morning, Ian's trio collected more than 10 mission targets. Lychee and Rolando followed along and registered several more. When the map was finally revealed and the coordinates announced, the five ceased further collection. "The map's been released, let's go!" They flew together toward the coordinates. Fortune smiled on them at first. They were close to the release point. But when they reached the spot, someone had already claimed the map. They were beaten by a single step. Chapter 77, Seize the Map Again. Lychee read the communicator alert. Someone had already acquired the map and told the other four by transmission, "I'll go grab the map first, then come back and meet you." He kicked off on his bloodblade cone and shot toward the coordinates like a streak of blood-red light. With his second-order telekinesis weapon and the energy-burning escape technique, his speed was blistering. After crossing a high mountain range, he arrived at the drop point and immediately spotted a pair of streaks of light flying off in the distance. Without hesitation, he gave chase. "Ha ha! I didn't expect the map drop to be so close to us," one of the pair laughed into his comm. "Same here," the other replied. They'd only been trying their luck, never imagining they'd actually pick up a map. Elated, one of them peered around, then his laughter cut off. A blood-red streak was closing fast behind them. "Someone's chasing us," he warned. He glanced back in disbelief. How is he so fast? Even at full speed, the pursuer was closing the gap quickly. They had just left the drop point. There was no way anyone could have overtaken them so fast. The nearer Lychee came, the more furious and impatient he felt. He transmitted, "Hand over the map." "Map? We don't have a map," one replied, feigning ignorance. "We're looking for it too," the other added, sounding hopeful. Lychee's patience thinned. From the moment the stellar cultivation camp sent the alert to his arrival at the coordinates had only taken him seconds. With his energy-burning escape technique, no one of ordinary speed could have left his sight that quickly. There had been nobody else around. If they weren't guilty, why were they fleeing full tilt instead of searching for the actual map holder? He deployed his domain. A green radiance burst outward from him, enveloping the two immediately. Under the domain's suppressive weight, their flight slowed drastically. "Domain! He's at domain level," one of them gasped. How can his domain be so strong? In the real world, unlike the virtual universe, Lychee's domain, augmented by 32 times the life gene level of his genetic primal energy and mind power, was terrifyingly oppressive. Even an astral rank's speed would be severely curtailed within it. "Hand over the map," Lychee repeated, landing not far from them. From the way he moved, they realized what they were up against. He's got a second-order telekinesis weapon, the Bloodblade Cone. No wonder his speed's insane. "A second-order telekinesis weapon. We're done for," the other said to his partner. Facing a domain expert wielding that kind of weapon, they stood no chance. After a quick exchange, practicality won. "Fine. Take it. We can't keep it with someone like him here." Lychee's impatience had already started to show. He formed his heavy defense disc into a razor ring in case they tried to flee. Seeing that, the two hurriedly opened their communicators. The leader tapped the screen and swiped toward Lychee. His wrist communicator buzzed. Lychee checked his own device and saw the stellar cultivation camp's confirmation. The map had been transferred. Good. Satisfied, Lychee released his domain. The two were at a safe distance and couldn't threaten him. The leader asked cautiously, "Can we go now?" "Go," Lychee said, then called out as they turned to leave. "Wait." They froze, afraid he might change his mind. "Find somewhere to hide," Lychee said, pointing to a nearby mountain range. "When the map unlocks, come to the highest peak over there. I'll share a copy with one of you." He saw their alarm and hurried to explain. "I only have one teammate, and the map can be shared twice. The extra copy will be my compensation to you." "Thank you," the leader said, suddenly polite, then added, "When it unlocks, I'll come find you." The other agreed. Lychee warned them, "Don't be late. I won't wait long." Then he kicked off on his Bloodblade Cone and flew back to meet Rolando and the others. Watching the red streak fade into the distance, one of the two whispered, "Do you think we should go meet him? What if he tricks us?" The leader shook his head. "With domain-level attainments, you don't think a genius like that needs to trick people, do you?" I don't doubt his intent, but can he actually keep the map if someone else comes for it? He's that confident telling us to come find him later. He must be sure he can defend it. We could follow at a distance. If he gets ambushed, maybe we can help. Are you insane? Anyone who could ambush a domain-level expert is probably domain level 2. You want to jump into a domain fight? You'll die. Okay, we won't interfere, but we can watch. Fine, watch, but don't interfere. They decided to follow cautiously. Since the Stellar Cultivation Camp kept announcing the coordinates, they wouldn't lose track. Li Qi met up with Rolando and the others shortly after. Rolando asked, "Did you get the map?" Li Qi nodded. "I got it," Ian suggested. "Now that we have it, let's find a place to wait for the others to arrive." Li Qi agreed. With the camp regularly broadcasting map coordinates, it would be hard to avoid other students indefinitely. He could have run. At his speed, no one could catch him. But he and the team preferred to hold the map by strength rather than by flight. They planned to use their power to subdue anyone who tried to take it. Soon the next map coordinates were announced, and within seconds, students began arriving, guided by the broadcast. Chapter 78. Discuss the opponent. The newcomers were a 3-person team. When they saw Li Qi and the others sitting openly atop the mountain peak, their faces darkened. "It's them again," their leader muttered. This trio had been among the students who'd surrounded Ian's team yesterday. They had watched Li Qi's 5-man group jointly push back more than 40 people. Though they had been driven off yesterday, the trio was convinced those 5 wouldn't get the map so easily today. The Stellar Cultivation Camp had 12 domain-level students taking part in this trial. The 5 domain-level students from Sanxi's Stellar Cultivation Camp had already teamed up, and the 7 domain-level students from the other 2 camps had done the same. The leader sneered and sent a mental message to his teammates. "There's a show to watch. Let's see if the 5 from Sanxi can stand up to 7 domain-level students." "Of course they can't," one teammate replied. 5 against 7? No chance." "Ha! 5 against 7 can't win," another agreed. As time crept by, more students arrived at the map coordinates released by the camp. By the 4th broadcast, over 60 students had gathered around the peak, more than had come yesterday. A domain-level student who had been there the previous day landed and scowled when he saw the same 5 people. "I knew it," he said under his breath. The fixed coordinates had made him suspect these 5 had secured the map again, and confirmation only made him more annoyed. He took a breath and pushed the irritation aside. He would have to face them. He sent a telepathic query to his teammate, also domain level. "How much longer?" "Soon. 2 minutes," the teammate replied. 2 minutes later, nearly 10 more students arrived, among them 4 domain-level combatants. The 3 who had come earlier flew to meet the newcomers, converging into a solid group. Kadinia smiled and mocked, "Heh! 7 domain-level students teaming up. We've stirred up a storm." She showed no fear. She trusted her captain's strength. Ian's expression stayed calm. He tilted his head and sent a mental message to Li Qi. "I'll hold off 3 domain-level opponents. Can you quickly put away yours?" Ian wasn't worried about his own teammates. He worried about Li Qi and another teammate. Rolando's domain had only arrived at the 1st level, and if Li Qi's domain were equally low, trouble could follow. If the fight reached a stalemate, lesser students watching might intervene. Once one person interfered, others often followed, and a coordinated swarm of non-domain fighters could overwhelm even a domain-level opponent. "One domain-level opponent?" Li Qi chuckled as his reply came back. "You're underestimating me." Kadinia and Akemu exchanged surprised looks. "He only just comprehended domain recently," Kadinia whispered. "How can he be so sure about handling 2 domain opponents?" Ian's face flickered. He probed again mentally. "Are you certain you can handle 2 domain-level opponents?" "Of course," Li Qi answered confidently. Ian's pupils narrowed. He had seen genius before. He was a planetary-level domain talent himself. But Li Qi's progress was astonishing. Ian had taken nearly a century to reach the 4th level of domain after first comprehending it. Li Qi had entered Chaoguang Academy only 4 years ago. To have comprehended domain and pushed it to the 3rd or even 4th level in that time was shocking. Ian could not hide a twinge of envy. Kei Niya and Akemu glanced at each other. Compared to this young genius, they felt like trash. After hundreds or nearly 1,000 years of cultivation, they had only reached the second level of domain. Ian, sensing the need to finalize tactics, sent another mental message. All right, each of us will deal with 2 domain-level opponents and finish them quickly. He didn't mention killing. These were domain-level students, not desperate mercenaries. They were competing for points and future prospects. Most hoped to become territory lord rank in time. Coming to the camp was about securing resources in the lava secret realm, not throwing away one's life for a few points. While Li Qi's group hashed out the new plan, the 7 domain-level students from the other 2 camps were doing the same. I heard from a contact at Sand Sea, one of them relayed mentally to the others. There's a man named Ian among those 5 who's supposed to be very strong. Word is, he arrived at the camp already at 4th level domain. Another added, and there's a planetary-level domain genius in that group, maybe the one wielding that second-order telekinesis weapon, the Bloodblade Cone. They all looked at Li Qi and took in his youthful face. So young, one said in surprise, then shrugged. If he's that young, maybe his domain isn't high. Maybe his strength comes mostly from that telekinesis weapon. Don't judge by appearances, another shot back. That planetary-level genius survived the last hunting mission, an event with a massive death rate. They say he escaped under pursuit from a universe-rank powerhouse and even earned an extra 100 points for a sudden mission. What? Chased by a universe rank? Someone else frowned. Risking so much for 100 points? That's guts, another murmured approvingly. To covet 100 points while being pursued by a universe rank, he's brave. Enough of that. He, the first, interrupted with a mental snap. We're here to decide how to allocate opponents. That planetary-level genius has a second-order telekinesis weapon and dared to grab points while under a universe-rank pursuit. He'll take 2 people to handle, one assessed. As for Ian, if he truly came in with 4th-level domain, Bobohan Nuofu and Shikc should hold him, and the rest can quickly finish their matchups, then regroup. Agreed. Feasible. They finalized the plan, assigned one-on-one matchups, and then, in unison, turned their attention back to Li Qi and the others sitting on the peak. Chapter 79, You Will Fall Before I Use My Full Strength. Noticed by the 7 domain-level students, Ian turned to Li Qi and transmitted, Shall we start now? Li Qi replied, Yes, let's try to finish before the map unlocks. With that, he led the way, leaving the mountain peak and flying toward the 7 opponents. Ian closed behind. The 7 exchanged looks and nodded. Following their plan, 4 of them split off to engage specific opponents. Seeing 2 figures coming straight for him, Li Qi thought, They aren't underestimating me. The remaining 3 of the 7 moved to meet the other 3 who had taken to the air, including Rolando. All the domain-level fighters took their stances. It's starting. They're about to engage. The ordinary students watching nearby murmured excitedly. For many, it was the first time they had witnessed so many domain-level people clash. Who do you think will win? One student transmitted to a companion. The companion answered without hesitation, the side with more people. True, the side with numbers has the advantage, said another, a Sansi Stellar Cultivation Camp student whose sympathies leaned toward Li Qi and Ian. But I still hope Li Qi and Ian win. His friend replied helplessly, Me too, but they're outnumbered by 2 domain-level fighters. If they pin Ian down, their numbers could win it. Yeah, being outnumbered makes things hard. Students from the other 2 major stellar cultivation camps were considerably less worried. Many had been driven back yesterday by the combined assault of Li Qi, Ian, and the rest, and today their domain-level allies had joined forces, 7 against 5. That numerical edge felt decisive. One of them, having shaken off yesterday's discouragement, transmitted triumphantly, Ha ha! They're going to lose today. We've got 7 domain-level fighters. Right, 7 of us. This map will be ours, his teammate replied, feeling vindicated. Nearby, 2 figures crept closer. They were the pair whose map Li Qi had stolen. Tsk, their leader transmitted. Looks like the guy who took our map isn't in any advantage today. 7 against 5. There is a difference, but domain battles are beyond our ability to interfere. What, do you want to jump in and help? The other asked. We can't help. I just don't want him to lose. or the map he promised to share with us will be gone. Not helping is the right choice. This kind of fight isn't for us. Just watch. They kept their distance. Battles between domain-level cultivators were not something ordinary students could disrupt. As they watched, the fight began. Two domains bloomed. One surrounded its user with an oppressive earthy yellow, an earth domain. The other swallowed its vicinity in darkness, as if all light had been erased. That was a light domain. The light domain was only domain first order. The earth domain was second order. The two coordinated. The stronger earth domain focused on heavy suppression, restraining Li Qi directly, while the light domain provided interference, plunging the field into darkness so outsiders couldn't see movements and so Li Qi couldn't effectively use visual-based techniques. Seeing Li Qi trapped by the earthy light and blinded by the dark, many of the Sansi students sighed. Alas, we lost. There's no way. Their coordination's perfect. With the light domain interfering, Li Qi can't fully deploy his mind energy weapon. He can't win. They were certain Li Qi, though a planetary-level domain genius, had been in the stellar cultivation camp too short a time. His domain cultivation wouldn't be deep enough to turn the tide. The students from the two allied camps cheered internally. Even a planetary-level genius could be crushed by coordinated domain suppression. Inside the earthy glow, Li Qi felt the squeeze and quietly analyzed. The earth domain is heavy, like gravity control. Great for suppression. The light domain can absorb and release light, so it excels at visual interference. Both are combat strong and individually outmatch my wood domain in raw, conventional terms. Their teamwork, one suppressing, one obscuring, is well suited to counter me. It's a pity their domain cultivation is a bit shallow. He smiled inwardly. Their domains are strong enough to handle most opponents, but against me, his eyes sharpened, they're still too weak. Li Qi opened his domain. A surge of green light centered on him and spread outward, rapidly expanding until dozens of meters of space were bathed in its glow. The earthy yellow that had been suppressing him was shoved to the edge of his domain, reduced to a few meters clinging around its user. The light domain fared worse. Because its user was only domain first order, the force of Li Qi's wood domain shattered it outright, leaving him enveloped and restrained by the green radiance and his movement greatly slowed. How is this possible? The two opponents cried. How can his domain be so strong? They had expected to overwhelm Li Qi through mutual suppression and visual interference. Instead, the moment he activated his domain, the situation flipped. The green wood domain dominated the battlefield, subduing both opposing domain users. Not only were the two domain-level fighters shocked, the crowd from the allied camps who'd been confident a moment before fell silent with astonishment. The tide of battle had turned in an instant. The students from Sansi were rendered speechless as Li Qi seized the advantage. Hidden beneath his outward calm, Li Qi sighed softly, almost amused. Another crushing victory, and I haven't even used my full strength yet. Li Qi hadn't even gone all out. With his 32-fold life gene level, his domain was extraordinarily powerful, so he deliberately held back. Even so, he still overwhelmed two domain-level opponents. His domain mastery had reached the third level, and he could contract it to 5 meters, making his domain unusually compact and solid, perfect for suppressing other domains. With both enemies suppressed, Li Qi moved fast and used his divine thought to control two psionic weapons at once. Whoosh! Whoosh! The heavy defense disc disassembled and reformed into a circular blade disc that lunged at the student using the light domain. The blood blade cone reassembled into the blood edge blade, a streak of blood-colored light that shot toward the student using the earth domain. Damn, he's still controlling two psionic weapons. Pressed by Li Qi's domain, the two students dared not fight him head-on. They dodged and tried to block with their weapons and battle shields, but they were at a total disadvantage. Still, they kept struggling. If their teammates could win their fights and come to help, they might turn it around. What they didn't see was that their teammates couldn't end their battles quickly. Among Li Qi's allies, only Rolando was at a disadvantage. The other three were either evenly matched or held the upper hand. It's over. We're going to lose. Those watching from the sidelines had a clearer view. Students from the other two stellar cultivation camps realized the domain-level students they'd backed were generally losing. In the only matchup where they had an edge, their opponent was a high-ranking Psyker Master, and that battle dragged on. The fight that most clearly decided things was the one where Li Qi alone suppressed 2 domain-level students. To the onlookers, he was terrifying. He'd used his domain to subdue 2 enemies and was deftly handling 2 psionic weapons at once. In the distance, the 2 students whose map had been stolen by Li Qi watched, stunned. Amazing, their leader breathed. One person suppressing 2 domain-level students. Too strong. Yeah, the other agreed. If we hadn't surrendered so quickly, we might have died. On the battlefield, the student using the Earth domain relied on domain power to slow the Blood Edge blade, then tried to block it with his force weapon and shield. After more than 10 seconds, he was flagging. He sent a message to his teammate. I can't hold much longer. Let's surrender. The light domain student blocked the circular blade disc with his shield and messaged back. Hold on a bit. If our teammates win and come help, we'll be fine. Easy for you to say, the Earth domain student muttered. You're not the one facing a second-order telekinesis weapon. He cast a quick glance across the other battlefields and felt his heart drop. He messaged again, there's no hope. Let's surrender. Why no hope? The light domain student replied. There's hope if we keep fighting. Reluctantly, the light domain student looked around, and then he understood. Bobokanov and Hicks, whom they'd hoped could hold Ian back, were actually struggling. Ian's domain attainment was terrifying, 5th level. Even though Bobokanov and Hicks were hanging on, without support, their defeat was only a matter of time. The other 2 battlefields offered no relief. One was a draw, the other slightly unfavorable and unable to support them. In the most promising fight, their teammates had the advantage, but the opponent was a higher-ranked Psyker Master, so that match wouldn't end quickly either. Everything was stalemate and running out of time. Worse, the domain-level student facing the second-order telekinesis weapon risked severe injury from even a glancing hit. A bad strike could cost an arm or a life for a handful of points. Asking someone to risk everything for that was too much. I surrender. The Earth domain student partially dropped his guard and took a grazing blow to his arm. Unable to continue, he surrendered. Li Qi received the surrender message, and the Blood Edge blade halted mid-strike. He glanced at the light domain student. The Blood Edge blade shuddered as if about to fire, then stopped. I surrender. Seeing his partner's domain retract and the second-order telekinesis weapon no longer aiming at them, the light domain student gave up as well. 2 against 1 was hopeless. Alone, he would never be able to withstand that weapon. He surrendered decisively. With both opponents yielding, Li Qi turned to help his teammate Rolando, who was still struggling. Wait! No! But the 2 students who'd just surrendered were terrified. Li Qi was not only incomparable in power, he held a second-order telekinesis weapon. If he struck in a sneak attack, their teammates might be maimed or killed. They urgently messaged Li Qi to stop and promised they would persuade the rest to give up. They then warned their teammates about Li Qi's strength, saying it rivaled Ian's. The domain-level students who received the message surrendered, retracted their domains, and withdrew. One by one, the opposing team's domain dissipated. From the sidelines, everyone understood the result. The 5-person team had won. We won. I didn't expect a 5 against 7 victory. The Sansi Stellar Cultivation Camp students cheered, exhilarated. They had just witnessed a rare spectacle, a fight involving more than a dozen domain-level students. We lost, even with 7 against 5, the students from the other 2 camps said, dejected. They'd thought victory was secure, but Li Qi had turned the tide. The 7 defeated domain-level students stared at Li Qi in shock and disbelief. This is a supplementary chapter.